For us, 2006 was a really outstanding year. We were well ahead on all of our targets. Train punctuality was high, safety on the railway was as high as it has ever been. We got tight financial control and starting to generate some really good surplus profits to reinvest back into the railway. And as we look forward to 2007, we knew that that would become a really pivotal year. We would generate for the first time ever real profits, perhaps as much as £1 billion, and we'd start to demonstrate the benefits of this CLG-type model to take those profits and reinvest them back in the railway.
One of the strengths of the organisation has been the consistency of management ever since Network Rail was created. But over time that changes, and in July 2007, John Armitt will be retiring. So Ian will be stepping up from the position of Deputy Chief Executive to the Chief Executive's role. That still brings continuity because Ian has been with us since the beginning and was the chief architect of the strategy to turn around Network Rail. We've moved away from fixing the problems to one of, well, what's the vision? What can we really become? And that Ian is going to have to lead. And as an individual, he's very bright, he's very focused, he's very determined, and he makes sure that things get done. So he's going to be the ideal person, I think, to lead Network Rail on to the next stage of its developments. We have a vision, and the vision is to be the best in the world at what we do, and we want to be recognised as one of the top companies in the United Kingdom. CLG or PLC, it doesn't matter. We want to be in the top 20%, and that's where I think we will get to with Ian leading the company.
And as we look to the future, the nature of our challenge really does change. In the past, it's been about cost and performance and making trains run on time. But as we go forward, we've got an issue of capacity. The railway is becoming full up, and we need to provide more and more services to more and more people. And that is a very, very different challenge. And to do that, we've got to make Network Rail a world-class company. It's got to be reaching out and delivering levels of performance in all areas of what we do at levels we've never achieved before. And that means providing inspirational leadership to some 33,000 people to really make a difference.
So having delivered the foundations of the turnaround strategy, we really had to start thinking about what we were going to do to achieve our ambitions to become world class and set out our vision for the future. And part of that was thinking, well, what are we here to achieve? And fundamentally, the company is here to deliver greater productivity and quality of life for the country, for the UK. And we can only do that if the rail industry is able to deliver a really sustainable, integrated transport system fit for the 21st century.
Probably some of the biggest challenge we face going forward is retaining the support of key stakeholders and our people whilst we go through this very dramatic cultural change programme. We've got to change public perception of the railway, and we've got to continue to attract new sources of funds to come into the railway to expand it.
One of the challenges that we've had in Network Rail, and one which we will face going forward, is the culture of the railway, the attitudes of the people within the railway. There's an enormous degree of pride in the service that they provide, and passion for the railway. Unfortunately, it's one which has been driven by overcoming almost the difficulties that they see presented to them by government in the past or by management today. And so getting people to accept that there is no difference between Network Rail and any other major service provider in the market. An example would be the big supermarket chains like Tesco. Is a very difficult one. Getting people to be accountable for the level of service that they're providing. Getting people to understand the customer expectation rather than what they can deliver from an engineering perspective, from what they see as engineering constraints. Getting people to put themselves in the customer's shoes and to say, well, what would I want my train service to be? What information would I like to be receiving today about the railway? It's a cultural change which we've started slowly to make some progress with, but I think is probably the biggest challenge going forward, is this cultural one of getting people to recognise that the railway is in competition with the car, with the aeroplane, that people do have a choice, that they shouldn't just assume that it's acceptable for fares to constantly be increased because we want to spend more on how we do our engineering. And these are difficult challenges for people to accept, but I think they are the big challenges in a cultural sense. And unless we make those cultural breakthroughs, then the world-class vision will actually prove to be a very difficult one to achieve.
One of the first things we did in October 2002 was introduce a new hierarchical form of command and control. Yes, it did achieve what we wanted, high productivity, increased discipline, but it has left some of our people somewhat disempowered and feeling like they're tied up in excessive bureaucracy. And as a result of that, we've stifled innovation, stifled creativity, and reduced flexibility.
In the same way as we're investing in the infrastructure, we need to continue the investment in people development, which I think actually will be critical in making a difference in whether or not we can become world-class. Two aspects, really. One is about developing our existing resource, and the other one is you need the development programs in place if you're really going to attract the very best people from the outside. Now, the dynamics are along the lines, we're going to train 600 people at Westwood, or educate 600 people at Westwood each year for the next 10 years, and we're going to give them high-quality education. It's not skills development, it's education. On the technical side, we're investing heavily there. We've got the apprenticeship program. Next year, we're going to have 650 apprentices at the various stages in the degree coming through. We're also investing 22 million in 5 brand new maintenance infrastructure training centres. And recruitment-wise, we continue to attract 4,000 people every year. What we need to do is to put more emphasis on values and behaviours of those 4,000 people. So as well as hiring for technical capability, we're also hiring for behaviour and attitude.
In the first few years after the takeover, we concentrated primarily on fixing processes. And I think certainly the phrase that we've used has kind of been stop the rot. But one of the most important things is not just what you do, but it's how you do it. And the team really, by getting together and talking about what's going to take us forward and what's really going to make us successful, we've realised that there's also the part of how we do it, and the behaviour and the culture of the company is absolutely vital. I don't think we're going to be able to make the same kind of performance improvements that we have on the railway, both in terms of cost and service, unless we get our people really fully engaged, all 32,000 of them fully engaged, working not as separate individuals, but as Team Network Rail.
Real challenge now is to develop the company and therefore develop the industry. That's what we're at the forefront of. That's what my function is all about. Working with customers, working with passengers and freight users to get the real growth back into the railway. The demand is there. What we've got to do is change the attitude within the company. Are we up for this? Can we develop the railway? And we're coming from a long way back. We nearly destroyed some of our customers' businesses a few years ago with all the problems that came in the latter days of Railtrack. Performance now is much better. The day job's under control. We've got to build on that, get out there, develop the railway, work with the customers, and grow this industry to the potential that's really there.
During the last few years, a lot of the improvements which have been made in relationships between Network Rail and the train operators have probably arisen because we've been working a lot more closely together, and we've both consciously recognised the need to do that. Notwithstanding that, both from the train operators and from Network Rail, there will be a continuing recognition that the current structure is still not perfect and that there are changes which are needed. But our view of those changes, of course, can differ. In some cases, the train operators might think they should have more control of something. In others, Network Rail might see themselves needing more control. We, for example, would like to have more ongoing control of maintenance of the stations. It's been successful recently that we and the train operators are talking about rolling stock design together again. But it's interesting to see how quite quickly people can feel threatened if the other part of the industry seems to be getting engaged in what they've traditionally regarded as their part of the industry. So in achieving the world-class vision that we have for constant improvement, the recognition that Network Rail has to play an important role in some of these factors which traditionally have been with the train operating companies, requires very careful management. We need to move quickly, but we mustn't move too quickly. We have to keep the high level of personal engagement and understanding between the two management teams of ourselves and particularly the train operators. I think it can be done, but it does require a high level of, I would say, sensing in managerial terms of the other person's position and recognising that position as you try and progress to the vision and the changes that you want to achieve.
The communications at Network Rail was an integral part of the business change strategy. We had to make sure that the messages that went out in the internal domain matched the external domain. We have many stakeholders from the government, from local authorities, as well as passengers and customers, plus 32,000 employees, and it was absolutely vital that all of those matched so people understood what we were doing. And ultimately, it was about controlling the message, having consistency of that message, and managing expectations. It was a great challenge to come into the organisation in 2002 and inherit some of the brand issues. Certainly Railtrack had a very high profile in the country, and when we came in and took over Network Rail, I was very keen that we created our own sense of brand and identity. The organisation is not Railtrack renamed. We have our different objectives, different purpose, and I think now in 2007 we have certainly delivered very different results.
Our long-term vision is for rail users to rate railway as the best mode of transport in Great Britain for overall reliability, safety, convenience and value for money.
We have come a long way in terms of value for money, but we have still got a long way to go. We have to satisfy numerous stakeholders and investors, government departments, and in order to achieve that, we've got to sustain the progress, maintain the momentum that we have already established.
We need to provide a railway system which meets the needs of our passengers. And that means it must be on time, it must be available for when they want to use it, 7 days a week. It must think about the end-to-end journey experience from the moment they leave their door to when they get to their destination, not just the rail bit. It needs to be low maintenance, it needs to be energy efficient, and of course it needs to be affordable. For me and for Network Rail, the next few years is all about change. We need to make Network Rail become a world-class organisation to transform the travel experience that the public sees from the railways. We're going to be embarking on a change programme which is enormous and probably bigger than something I've ever undertaken in my life. But I think we can do this. We have the vision, we have the leadership, we have the people and the determination to make this a success.